So Sett, Annie, and Teemo had a great showing in multiple tournaments this past weekend. What are those deck lists looking like, and what can you expect as this is going to maybe possibly shift the meta? All of that and more starting right now. That's just it. When we were going into these 10Ks and 12Ks, we very well thought that a lot of these were going to be Kai'Sa and Master Yi's that were going to be making it into the top. And in a lot of ways, yes, that did end up being the case. But what is this? I mean, Annie alone got like top 8, having multiple decks in those top 8s in the 10K and 12K respectively. And then even same with Sett as well. Now, of course, with that, it is interesting to also note that even Prismaticism, who is very known in at least the online community, was able to also get 6th place with Teemo. So this is very interesting to be able to see, and almost goes to show you what you can maybe expect with this upcoming meta. It almost feels like that it is a little bit wider than what we were expecting. And that's going to be something interesting enough to consider. So the biggest thing with that, of course, is that you are going to be, looking at, the 60% kind of what it feels like, at least, of the meta being Master Yi and Kai'Sa respectively. But it's interesting because, I mean, it looks like Sett, and something that we've been saying for a while now, especially online on X and things of that nature, is that Sett seemed rather underrated in what he was able to do. He had a lot going for him, but wasn't necessarily very well represented, especially when you went ahead and looked at the China regionals. And so you're sitting around and being like, well, what's going on, with these decks suddenly doing good? And it's like, well, they're finally getting representation. Now, likewise, I think a lot of the people, especially when I was at SCG Con in Vegas, weren't necessarily ready for going against Sett. There is still a lot of new players out there for sure, and you're going to be seeing a lot of Kai'Sas and Master Yi's that were preparing for just that, seeing just those two. And when you were going ahead and seeing then what Sett was able to do, and not necessarily having an easy way, especially as a Kai'Sa player, in dealing with what Sett could do, it became very difficult then to move around. There was a couple of times where I ended up even going against Sett as well, and being able to try to maneuver around that was rather difficult. I ended up having to go ahead and using Smokescreen, and then going and using Falling Star to then get rid of the Sett just forthwith at that point. And even in game number 2, I used an Acathian Rain to also do so, to be able to get around the craziness of being able to save a unit with the Legend ability. And there's a lot of ways that, fortunately for the Sett players, where they were definitely prepared, or not prepared, to go ahead and meet, Kai'Sa players and Yi players alike weren't ready to meet against such a formidable foe, and that gave the upper hand to the Sett players. Now, that is still a difficult deck to try to pilot in this case, and trying to figure out how to go ahead and maneuver around the presented opportunities, and rightfully so. You really have to know your matchups in this game, and you have to find the correct lines. Otherwise, you're just going to be taken advantage of. And that's also an interesting point as well. There were a great deal of Flesh and Blood players that were also going ahead and playing in these tournaments, especially SCG Vegas, who ended up doing incredibly well in the Flesh and Blood events, and then just went ahead and throttled everyone. The guy who won with the Kai'Sa list, he's like, I've played maybe 10 games with this deck. And he ended up getting a top 8 finish as well, which is just absolutely insane. And that goes not only necessarily to the game knowledge per se, but at least with the strategy knowledge and the finding the correct lines. Flesh and Blood is a very strategy-driven game where you need to balance the cost of the card, because the cards have the cost on them. That's where you get your mana from, and then you use other cards to then play out the cards that you have in hand. And so it's a little complicated on how you go about that. And I remember when I was getting into Flesh and Blood, people were even saying, hey, don't give up just yet. Once you finally play about 100 games, then it's finally going to feel like, well, here we go, I'm finally getting the hang of it. And it's like, well, that completely explains why these players were able to do so well. And again, brand new game for a lot of people, so the competition and the learning curve for that matter are very steep in that case, because yeah, you can learn this game, but man, can it be difficult to then master. So we're going to be going in and talking into the Vegas deck lists in particular at first, and then we'll go into, of course, the following tournament as well. Talking about the CCS 10K tournament with that. So now, first and foremost, Annie is slept on, and a lot of people were asking in the Market Watch video that I made why Annie hasn't necessarily seen a huge increase in price with what like we have seen with Sett. And I gotta say with that, the biggest reason is because really the only thing outside of maybe if you don't have a proving grounds, getting those proving ground cards is going to be the fact that you just need 2 additional Kaisas in that case, or 3 Kaisas in total. I only need 2 more at least to play that. Anyway, but with that, yeah, you really only just need a couple of Kaisers, which have already been overpriced as it is. And so you're not necessarily going to see a huge climb in that case. Now, this is going to be really interesting. Annie does an absolutely great job at being able to move so incredibly fast and then avoid a lot of the issues that you generally will run into with like going against a Kaisa. They go ahead and play a Void Seeker, and you go ahead and play Flash and move back. You go ahead and do, some fight or flights or things of that nature to get to save your stuff, and rightfully so. And so there's a lot of really interesting ways that you can go about in dealing with the threats that your opponent is trying to present you with. Not only that, you can go ahead and even use like fight or flight and get Yi off of the battlefield so that you can just go in and take it. And then when you finally get up to 6 points, well, cool, here goes Vi and Ride the Wind. And oh, you want to go ahead and defy that? That's fine. Annie comes in. I'm going to grab, that card again, and then I'll just go right back at you. Annie is, though, a very difficult deck to try to pilot because you have so many different aspects that you need to then juggle. You need to be able to handle, cards in hand. If you just run out of cards, you're going to lose. If you have 2 cards or less in your hand, you're in trouble as an Annie player. Likewise, if you go ahead and you end up recycling too many runes, well, then you're going to, shoot yourself in the foot right there too. And then on top of that, there's just so many different dynamics that you have to keep straight, not only even just knowing your matchup. So it's a little difficult to try to understand how to correctly maneuver things. But I mean, the fact that the Annie was actually going into the top 4 as the first place holder is something big and a statement that needs to be notated there alike. One thing that's really interesting as well, just so you guys know, with the SCG Vegas, that they were battling for so long that they just did a top 4 split of the prize money in that case, instead of going in and seeing who would win. They had already been playing for like 14 hours. It was a really long day. Rightfully so. So definitely understand that. So first and foremost, let's go ahead and take a look at the Annie list here. Now, of course, Annie, for those of you who don't know, she has just an insane ability at the end of your turn, ready to runes. Okay, cool. First and foremost, you're always going to be pretty much starting with Zon Warrens. You're going to discard a card and draw one when you conquer. That's going to be really good on getting things into the discard so that you can use Vi later in the game. Also, just getting cards out that you don't necessarily need for the situation in hopes of drawing one that you do need. Arena's Greatest is going to be the one when you go first. So if you end up winning game 1, you're not going to necessarily use Arena's Greatest in game 2. Unless you feel like you could absolutely just overrun your opponent with the speed and whatnot, then feel free to, but Dreaming Tree is also just a really good option. Then Annie's ability, of course, is going to be when you play me, return a spell from your trash to your hand, which is how you're going to be able to get things back, like Stack Deck, Falling Star if you needed it, Ride the Wind if you've already used it to go hand in hand with the Vi, and things of that nature. When you do end up getting in trouble and not necessarily having a whole lot of cards for you to be able to draw, going ahead and playing Annie for a stacked deck is going to be one of the best things for you to do, because looking at 3 cards, especially when you only have maybe 20 cards left in your deck when you're at that late game point, could be a big difference maker for you. Stacked deck, man. It is an insanely powerful card. Being able to look at the top 3 cards of your main deck, put 1 into your hand, and recycle the rest. So right there already some devastating stuff. Of course, Cleave being able to add Assault 3 in that case. Gust to be able to return a unit with 3 or less to its owner's hand. Traveling Merchant, when it moves, discard one, then draw one. Again, putting some stuff into the discard. That's going to be really one of your best starts, is going to be Zon Warrens and Traveling Merchant in that game one. And you just start discarding a lot, and you can really, if you even start getting in trouble mid-game, you can even do a preemptively Ride the Wind and already have a lot going for you there. So a lot of fun stuff to be able to consider with that. Then, of course, Vi has ganking as well, and that's why Ride the Wind is so good with that, because you move a friendly unit and then ready it. We've already seen that in the last video, or in a couple videos ago I made, talking about why Annie is such a good card. This is why, because, you know, you can go Ride the Wind, and then you can just go right into Vi, and it's just, oh, it's insane. Now, Pouty Poro, of course, as well, has Deflect. That's going to be one of the things to just go ahead and punish the Kai'Sa players in that case. Same with Flash. Most people run to just because it comes in the Proving Ground set. You don't necessarily need to run a playset of it either. It does absolutely a great job just as a 2 of. 3 of almost does feel like a bit much in play testing it myself. Then, of course, 3 Ride the Winds, because that's your win con. There have been people who have played 1 or 2 Falling Stars, but again, I think this competitor did only play 1 Falling Star just because of the 2 power cost. You do not want to be recycling as much in this case, and this is almost kind of a get out of jail free to get you back in the game without having too much of a cost, because, man, if you're playing 2 or 3 in this case, it's going to be tough. Rebuke to get around the very dangerous things, the things that are going to be difficult to try to take over. Fight or Flight, it can be hidden. You normally won't because of Annie's ability, but still, if you really want to play it at more of a reaction speed, then you're more than welcome to go ahead and hide it. It will be a great choice, and you'll be able to move a unit from a battlefield to its base. That's really good too, because a lot of times people are going to be attacking in, and you're going to be like, guess what? Nope. You go back to your base, you're in timeout kind of thing. And that can slow down your opponent so much and almost guarantee that you are going to be able to score another point at your upkeep. It just is such a great play there. Rebuke also, I mean, even though it does have the 2 power cost as well, which is why I think instead of doing 2, they did just go 1 and 1. But I mean, being able to return a unit to from a battlefield to its owner's hand can just be insanely good. It can't be defied either, which is something to keep in mind with that. Instead, it's going to be able to then go ahead and, you know, pick a unit. And that can be scary in and of itself. One of my favorite combos, of course, is going to be going in on turn 1 and playing a Traveling Merchant, and then passing for turn, and next turn going into a sneaky deckhand, immediately getting 2 points with 2 cards discarded and drawn in that case. Immediately going up to 2, odds are your opponent's only going to be able to then take one of the battlefields if they're lucky. You might have a Fight or Flight or something to deal with what they might be attacking in with, and then you just score more points at that point. So, I mean, like I said, Annie is pretty much the most aggressive deck here. Void Seeker to deal 4 and draw 1. Then you have Noxus Hopeful, 2 less when you have the Legion ability, so you can send it out for just 2 in that case. Great way to defend, or even just a back burner to go ahead and attack it on the following turn. Kai'Sa's with Accelerated. If you do want to do a budget version, you can go ahead and do Vi. Great option as well. Or Vayne, because they will have Assault +3. They cost 4 and 1 power, so a little bit more of a cost there. But Kai'Sa is just such a good ability there. And 3, Darius as well. So that's going to be really fun. And then, of course, in your side deck situation, if you do need to go a little bit more aggressive on taking out the battlefields, Vayne is going to be a great answer. Fading Memories to deal with the gears and things of that nature. Though Annie has a really good matchup into Auroras, just because they do have a lot of ways to deal with units that are coming out and alike. So really interesting to be able to see an Annie actually going into first place in the top 4 is just so cool to be able to see. Now, likewise, Prismaticism. This was really interesting. And I found myself laughing at round 1 because out of the 96 people, however many were there, I ended up going against Prismaticism in the first round. And we sat down, and Priz was sitting across from me, and he's like, oh, cool, it's really nice that I get to go against someone I know. And I was like, yeah, it's great. And he just absolutely played me like a fiddle, plain and simple, and even went on to get 6th place as well. He knows how to play this deck. He knows how to play pretty much any deck. When he went ahead and was playing this in the Rift Lab clashes, he was really one to show us first and foremost that Teemo was one that could go ahead and be just such a force to be reckoned with here. So something's really interesting about all of that. And he just has such an understanding about this game. He's done so good placing in the Rift Lab Trials 1 and 2 in that case, and being able to win so many tournaments, and then on top of that, getting 6th place at SCG Vegas. It is intense to see just the game knowledge that this guy has, and he has a mind for the strategy of this. So for those of you who don't know, Swift Scout for Teemo has the ability that you may pay 1 instead of the power cost to hide a hidden card. That's a big difference right there. It can be so devastating to have to recycle runes. Well, you don't have to. You can spend that on better things like Mind Splitter and things of that nature. Now, of course, this deck doesn't necessarily run Mind Splitters, but still. And this was the biggest thing about going against Prismaticism, is he knew how to deal with the Kai'Sa decks, even against a deck that usually is stacked against in the Kai'Sa matchup. Normally, this is a very difficult deck to try to go ahead and meet Kai'Sa in a mirror match. And as I was playing against him, he had everything just so calculated in what he was trying to do. He had 2 Ember Monks going in on game 1 for us, and then game 2, he had a mid to late game Mundo that was able to be at 16, and I was just like, what the heck? And just was able to take both games. He 2-0'd me with ease at that point, and rightfully so. Started with the Bandle Tree, gonna be just such a great one to go ahead and, your opponent's not going to necessarily utilize this unless maybe Annie, but most likely you as a Teemo player are the only one who is going to be utilizing Bandle Tree. Likewise, after that, Zon Warrens was the second one that he ended up using against me in this match, and rightfully so. Again, getting cards into the discard. That was one of the biggest reasons why Mundo was so big come turn 5 or 6, just because he already had so many cards in the discard. He's like, yeah, Mundo's at 16, and I was just like, huh, yeah, not going to beat that. 2 Teemos, really good. Again, just to kind of throw that little bit of a curveball, you're going to be adding Teemo to hand potentially if you go ahead and use the legend ability. But again, getting people to guess maybe what your hidden cards are just gives you such an upper hand in how to deal with things. Stack deck, like we've gone over, Stupefy to draw 1, -1 off of a unit, then going ahead and returning a unit with Gust. That's only going to be 1 in that case, easy one to side out, or easy one to side in if you do need the additional help against aggro, especially Annie in that case. Great option right there. Retreat just in case. Traveling Merchant for 3, Ravenbloom Student to get +1 for each spell that you play. Again, it's a lot like the Ember Monk here, which we'll talk about in the second, but just not nearly as powerful, and rightfully so, it's cheaper. Smokescreen, again, a one of, really good, being able to -4, great way to surprise your opponent. Guerrilla Warfare, returning up to 2 cards with Hidden back to your hand, ignoring the costs. And hiding while ignoring the cost. That is just so good as well. So, and Prismaticism used that card against me. Was it game 1 or game 2? But he was able to go ahead and play it. He added 2 cards back, and then immediately, I think he put 2 right back into the Bandle Tree, if I'm remembering correctly, and then even had 1 over in the other battlefield as well. That he played the 2 for free. So it was just like, whoo. Now, we've already seen Fight or Flight, but Tide Turner, holy crap, is it an interesting card. It can mess with your opponent so much. And when you already own multiple, battlefields and whatnot, you reveal Tide Turner, have him switch with the Ember Monk, whoop, and then all of a sudden the Ember Monk gets +2 because you played a hidden card, and then it goes right over. Just really powerful abilities right there. Such a great option to be able to see. Now, Lecturing Yordle to be able to draw a card. He is only running 2, and the biggest thing is Tank. I can't tell you how many times Yordle has saved my units because of Tank. Sprite Call, because it can be hidden. Also, just being able to play a 3 might Sprite at the ready can be such a good option as well. Conduit of the Past to be able to draw. Again, normally You do not want to pay the 4 cost to be able to draw 2. You want to play this hidden, and if you do, man, it feels so good. Ember Monk, being able to then go ahead and when you play a card from hidden, give me +2 this turn. Just a really great job on being able to get things going. And again, with the Bondle tree, you could go ahead and gain +6 if you have all of the battlefields and 3 hidden cards out. Because they are at reaction speed, you can react at the appropriate time, and Ember Monk can get that gain. That is a game changer. And man, it was so hard. I needed more smoke screens in my deck just to really mitigate what Ember Monk could do. And even then, you would go Ember Monk, then you would play Teemo. Teemo would add +4, Ember Monk would add +2, and then it's like, well, how do I get over this? And the math was not mathing, and man, it was such a tough matchup with that. Loved playing against Prismaticism because I learned absolutely so much about this matchup and about his understanding of this game. I have gone against him online, but this is just such a different experience playing against someone online or in person and seeing their mannerisms, seeing how they think, how smooth their play is, and just how formulated they were with this entire matchup. Now, Sprite Mother with that as well. When you play me, you may ready a 3 might Sprite unit with token with temporary, which is really good. So for 1 more, you get another 3 might unit. You do have a power cost there. But again, a quick way to match the aggression. You can go ahead and even just throw the Sprite unit into a battlefield to help clear it out, and then you move something else in at that point. Cool. You can also go ahead and have Sprite Mother go ahead and play. You play the Sprite, you attack into a battlefield, you take it over, then you play Ember Monk into it and hide a card, and it's going to be so difficult to then try to take it back. Singularity is just such a good card to be able to really shut down a lot of decks, but mainly Kaisa. I've been testing that in my Victor deck for in particular, and it shuts things down. You're going to be seeing like all of a sudden you pay 6 and you're just like, oh, by the way, your Kaisa and your Darius are dead. Try to bounce back from that. Great card. Then, of course, 2,000 Tail Watchers, not 3, and 2 Dr. Mundos. I mean, this guy is just going to be so difficult to try to take down that late game at that point. 16 was a low Mundo, all things considered. I think the biggest one I've had out was, I think, 26, if I recall correctly. 24 or 26, something like that. And then even just recycling 3 doesn't matter. You're going to be playing so many cards anyway. He's going to go right back up. Especially with how Prismaticism has structured this deck. It is such a good balance of being able to draw and maintain card draw while also being able to just absolutely devastate your opponent. Not only that, you can do Tide Turner, where if you have a Mundo in base, or even heck, a Traveling or a Thousand Tail Watcher, you play a Tide Turner, switch them in, all of a sudden 7+ more might in that case instead of 2, and that's going to really make it difficult for your opponent to take these battlefields. Then likewise, of course, 1 Gust, 1 Smokescreen, 2 more Rebukes just in case, 1 Sprite Mother, 1 more Singularity, and 2 more Rasha the Sunderer. This is going to be interesting. Now, I will say this, that running this deck in particular definitely needs to be very calculated, very technical in your understanding. You can definitely make the misplays and wrong or big mistakes and whatnot. And knowing your matchups are going to be such a game changer here for you, but something that is very helpful with that all the same. So really great deck. Was so cool to be able to go against Prismaticism. Really sucked to start the game, the tournament X1, but we have the recap that should be posted by the time this video is posted. Just so fun to be able to see him there and to be able to interact with him in a competitive scene. He's scary. He's scary, plain and simple. Next, of course, is going to be the next Annie in this case. Now, again, Chris was able to do really good. A lot of this is going to see a lot of similarities. This time, 3 flashes in this deck list, so really interesting to see there. 3 Cleave, 3 Gusts. That's already going to be a little bit different at that point. And then also invert timelines is going to be a big difference maker there. Just 1, but it's definitely one that can help Annie out and also even kind of counter a lot of the decks that might be having a lot of card draw, namely Ari and Annie. You're going to be able to then go ahead and say, hey, you have 6 cards in hand. Now you have 4. Hey, you really worked hard on refining that hand. You used, the Zon Warrens or whatever to really get rid of the stuff to hopefully find things Well, too bad. Now you go ahead and you only have 4 cards in hand, and they're, at the random of your deck. Good luck. You know, this card has seen a huge increase in price as well, going up to now $60 at this point, unfortunately. But it is such a good card, and rightfully so. Being able to draw 4 cards at that point, and then otherwise, yeah, we got the Kaisas, the Dariuses, the Falling Stars in the side decks, again, just to help clear things out. Acceptable losses, the Rebukes, the Annie, the Fading Memories, and Possession as well. Now, of course, I do really like the Annie in here as well. Just in case you happen to need to find those answers a little bit more, you might be able to better secure that option. One deck that I kind of wish that we actually did see perform a little bit better, there was a Victor on SCG Vegas that I really wish. I mean, we saw it on stream, if I remember correctly. I don't know, though, because I was in the tournament. So I haven't seen the stream just yet. But the interesting thing about that is there was a really interesting Victor deck list, and I think he was on stream, actually. But I really wanted to see that kind of deck list and what it could do. He was always at, like, the top table at that point, and then just unfortunately ended up going, I think, 6-3 if I recall, and so just barely wasn't able to make it top cut. But man, was that an interesting gameplay, and was he an interesting player to be able to see. Something definitely to keep in mind with that, and gonna be curious to see what all might be happening with that as well. But man, it is gonna be interesting. Next, of course, we are going to be going into the CCS here, because man, has it been interesting. Now, of course, Colin here just was able to take first with Sett. Now, for those of you who don't necessarily know, Sett's ability is if a unit that is buffed would die, you go ahead and spin the buff and recycle a rune, and then you go ahead and exert the Sett card, the legend card in this case, and return it to base. That's going to be very powerful in that case, being able to do so much. And this is just a strong deck as well. Love what they were able to do with this. You are going to have things like Cloudfield in this case. When you play another unit, buff me. Really good right there. Daring Poro, that has Assault +1. Not necessarily a great one to go into Kaisa with, but if they don't have the Hextech Raise or things of that nature, it can really, that one extra can really make a difference there. Pit Rookie, when you play me, buff another friendly unit. First Mate, when you play me, ready another unit. And then we have Fiora as well. While I am mighty, aka 5 or more, I have Deflect, Ganking, and Shield. And that's going to be interesting as well, because man, she can be scary when she is mighty, and there's a lot of things that are able to do so as well. And I mean, a lot of ways to buff up your units. Now, 2 Kinku Monks, which is really interesting to be able to see as well. And when you play me, buff 2 other friendly units, which is really awesome. Then likewise over here as well, even playing the other Sett, which is really interesting to see. But he has a great ability. We'll talk about Kiana. Haven't forgotten about you. But, biggest thing is tank. So assign combat damage first. And then I get +1 for each buffed friendly unit at my battlefield. So it's very well that you might not have to worry about your other units, or even that Sett might be taken out if other units are already buffed. It can just be something to make a big difference here. Now, Kiana's going to be interesting as well. Has Deflect, and then when I conquer, you can either choose to draw 1 or channel 1 rune Exhausted. That can really help mitigate the legend ability of trying to go ahead and get units back to base and keep them to fight another day. That's going to be one of the biggest things that makes Sett such a great deck, because you're going to be seeing yourself having just such a hard time trying to get rid of units and expounding a lot of resources to be able to do so. Then we also have Lee Sin, which is going to be really good as well. It can come out accelerated, and then other friendly units at my battlefield have +2 as well. And so other buffed friendly units, yes, I don't know if I said that, but buffed friendly units have +2 might as well. So it's going to be really crazy. And if you go ahead and even like have this Sett buffed with this Lee Sin coming in and you're attacking into a battlefield, it's almost a good luck. Like, you're going to see if that's even possible to get over at that point. Then, of course, Sabotage to get things moving. 2 right there, really interesting. There was a couple of deck lists that only ran 1, so the fact that there's 2 is really cool to see. Then Showstopper with 3, just one of the best signature cards in Set 1. Set 2 is going to have some really challenging signature cards. Going to be really scary to have to go against those, let me tell you. We have a video about that. And then after that as well, Challenge, which is really good. And then 2 Hidden Blades to be able to draw cards, and also even just taking care of an opponent's threat. Like, hey, they're probably going to take this battlefield. I'd rather you just draw 2 cards at that point and me be able to score another point. Call to Glory at that point as well can be played at reaction speed, and you can spend a buff instead of the 3. So you can be completely tapped out. Your opponent thinks that they're safe to go into a battlefield. You can spin a buff from anywhere. It doesn't have to be in the battlefield that is being attacked or on the unit that is being the Call to Glory is being used for. So you could have just a pit rookie that is buffed back in your base, spin that buff, and then use Call to Glory and add +3 to an already buffed unit at a battlefield. Just insane. Then on top of that, Primal Strength, really good, and 3 Arena Bars to really just help secure all those buffs on your units. Then, likewise, what we are going to see is 2 additional Sett Brawlers, 1 more Sabotage, 2 Unyielding Spirit for the Kaisas. Even Victor has been running a lot of spells like Singularity and things like that. Salvage, and then Imperial Decree. So just really good stuff right there. Love Imperial Decree too, just saying. And then, of course, the battlefields, we're going to be seeing Grove of the God Willows. When you hold here, draw 1. Monastery of Hirana, really good right there as well. And Dreaming Tree. You could also switch out Grove of the God Willow for Trifarian War Camp. That interacts incredibly well with Fiora. But again, that's not what this player ended up running. And he was able to go ahead and get first. So take all of that with a grain of salt. But great job right there on being able to do so. Likewise, Luna Love going 7-1-1. So an intentional draw there. But hey, if you're in the top, might as well. Now, of course, Lee Sin's or Master Yi's ability is really good. This is why we're covering it. There wasn't necessarily a whole lot of Master Yi's that ended up making top cut, especially at SCG Vegas, which is really interesting. There were a lot of people that were close, but just didn't quite get there. It was tough, too, with 400 people and going into a top 8. Really thins out the field, but, you know, that's just how it is. Then Clockwork Keeper, you're going to be able to then go ahead and, recycle a green to be able to draw a card. Pit Rookie, we've already gone over. Stalwart Poro, really good as well to be +1 as a defender. So +3 with Master Yi's Legend ability. Wielder of Water to go ahead and add +2 when attacking or defending alone. Again, going up to 6 early game is really good with Master Yi's Legend ability. Kiana at 3. Really difficult for Kaisas to have to deal with that. You're really looking at, a Darius and Cleave to try to go ahead and get over Kiana. Otherwise, your spells to be able to recycle and try to take out a Kiana, it hurts. If you do a Void Seeker and dealing 4 damage and then hoping that you're able to then go ahead and take it out and you're recycling 2, that can really slow down really slow down any deck that has targeting, especially Kaisa like that. 1 Master Yi as the Legend, 2 Tasty Faefolk, 3 Deadbloom Predators, 2 White Flame Protectors. Deadbloom Predator, of course, is going to be able to be played into an open or into a occupied battlefield. Such a great card. You do have to recycle 2, but it does also have Deflect, which is scary. Then you have White Flame Protector to add +8 to a unit, including itself. So if by some chance, in this case, not with this deck, but if by some chance you have the ability to ready this up, well, you can target itself and add +8 and go in for 16. Charm at that point as well to move an enemy unit. Defy to counter anything that's 4 or less cost and 1 power cost or less. Unguard for to add +1 to a unit. Now, that's the interesting part, or +2 if it's the only unit, sorry. If you play Unguard in base and there's multiple units in base, it only gets +1. That was a big mistake I saw a lot of people making where they would add 2, and it's like, no. You need to play that when it goes into a battlefield, but to play it in base, you have multiple units there. You're only going to add 1, and so that's the tough part there. Discipline, again, to add +2 and draw 1, really good. Find your center for a little bit of ramp. And 3, Zonia's Hourglass, again, just such a great answer. If something would die, well, cool. The Zonia's Hourglass will die instead, and the unit will move back to base perfectly fine. Then, of course, we have another White Flame Protector, 2 Sabotages, 2 Unyielding Spirits, 2 Rune Prisons, which, I mean, is such a good card. You're able to stun a unit. It doesn't deal combat damage this turn. That's scary. And then Catalyst of Eos, again, just to get that little extra ramp to get you to that to get you to that in-game that much quicker. So really good deck overall. Really exciting to see how this was able to go ahead and get second place. But man, it was no match for the Sett player. You could go ahead and even just, use his ability and buff him again, use the ability, go up to 12, attack into something, and that even for Master Yi is going to be so difficult to try to get over in that case, even with things like Discipline and things of that nature. And so, I mean, it's great at shutting down Master Yi. It makes going against, Kai'Sa going against them as well very difficult. Such a fun deck to be able to see. Can't wait to see what else is happening. Now, last deck that we are going to be talking about is Annie, that was able to get third place, going 7-2 to be able to make the top cut and ending in third place. Really great job there. Now, of course, the battlefields are Arena's Greatest, Dreaming Tree, and Zon Warren, so very similar to what we've already seen. 3-3-3-3, yep, 1 Annie. 3 Kaisas, 3 Dariuses as well, 3 Cleaves, 3 stacked decks, 1 Falling Star, 2 Fighter Flights, 3 Flashes again, Ride the Winds are 3 Void Seekers, and Scrap Heap. Now, that's going to be really interesting. There's a lot of ways for you to go ahead and discard things. Even if you do have to play Scrap Heap out, it is going to be one thing to really at least help you get rid of things to be able to then draw additional cards, And so just really good to be able to do that. Really interesting consideration there as well. And then it's interesting also, you could even flip this with going 3 Fighter Flights and 2 Flashes. Definitely something to keep in mind there. And then 2 Veins, 2 Gusts, 1 Falling Star, 2 Rebukes, and 1 Fading Memories. Now, the Fading Memories is really interesting that you are only running 1. Again, though, Aurora's is such a deck that you're not necessarily too worried about with Annie, just with what she's able to use. Fighter Flight is such a powerful card for going against those kinds of decks. That you are able to move incredibly fast anyway, and also Darius and Cleave is a really good combination. Can struggle a little bit more against the Misfortune Aurora, but even still, you have a great matchup playing Annie into the Aurora matchups. But yeah, guys, man, this was an exciting weekend first and foremost. So cool to be able to see this meta getting wider here, and that even only 1 Master Yi ended up actually making it into the top 8 of both tournaments here. So really interesting to be able to see that. But more so, Annie. What is up with that? But it is such a great card and can be something so difficult to try to deal with. So it's going to be interesting to see what all is going to continue to happen with these cards. But I am so excited with how this meta seems to be even wider now that we have the 10K and 12K. Not only that, but we have Houston and Orlando even coming up this next month. The 25K in Orlando. And then not only that, the Houston Regional, the first one for English. We are going to be doing all that coverage here, and that will be something to keep an eye on. Look forward to that. But with that being said, guys, that is going to be it. So what deck are you thinking is going to take this meta by storm? Are we going to see more Setts, or just Annies in this case populating around? Is Kai'Sa maybe going to be falling a little bit more behind? Go ahead and let me know down in the comments below, and until next time, guys, have a good one.